2 weeks ago, the UK Prime Minister openly admitted something that has been widely understood for decades, but that the MOD has vociferously denied. At a press conference addressing the US President's threats to conquer Greenland, Keir Starmer said verbatim,
"Our nuclear deterrent is our foremost weapon and deterrent when it comes to securing the safety of everybody in the United Kingdom. It's my primary duty, and that requires us to have a good relationship with the United States."
But wait, isn't this the very famous independent nuclear deterrent that the military establishment has always maintained is under the control of the Prime Minister and the Royal Navy alone? Why would such a much vaunted sovereign weapon system depend so strictly on maintaining good relations with another country? The answer is very simple, which is that the UK's sole nuclear weapons platform, the submarine-launched nuclear missiles based out of Scotland's west coast, are entirely dependent on the technical and logistical support of the US military. For a start, while the Royal Navy's nuclear submarines are built in the UK, their design is based very closely on that of US nuclear submarines, as are the UK's nuclear warheads built by the atomic weapons establishment at Aldermaston and Burrfield. But most significantly, the missiles that deliver these warheads, Trident II D5 intercontinental ballistic missiles, are made by Lockheed Martin in California, stored at the Kings Bay US Navy port in the state of Georgia, and leased to the UK by the US military. The Royal Navy's nuclear submarines return to Kings Bay regularly so that the Trident missiles can be serviced and maintained by US engineers. The UK does not have the facility to conduct this maintenance independently. The origins of this arrangement go far back to the 1960s, when the UK's intercontinental missile program called Blue Streak failed. This drove the UK military to depend on the US Polaris missiles for its submarine-launched nuclear weapons, as part of the Nassau Agreement. The creation of a shared missile pool between the US and the UK was formalised in the Polaris Sales Agreement of 1963, which was updated for the newly developed Trident system in the 1980s. There is no doubt that the US could withdraw its extensive technical and logistical support for Trident and completely undermine the UK's nuclear-armed status. Without the continued assent of Washington and the support of the US military, therefore, the UK would not be a nuclear-armed state today. After Keir Starmer's recent admission that positive US relations are indispensable to operate the UK's nuclear weapons, it's very hard to see how the phrase independent nuclear deterrent can be credibly used by the government or the pro-military media ever again. But nuclear weapons enthusiasts and military establishment boosters will continue to argue that even in the circumstance of full US withdrawal of support, the one UK submarine that is always at sea could fire Trident independently for a period of months. This is not so straightforward though, as in fact the UK's Trident system is assigned to NATO under the Nassau Agreement, and therefore under the control of an always American NATO general, except in circumstances of supreme threat to the nation, whatever that means. In any case, these granular details miss the main liability caused by the UK's Trident dependency. That is that relying on the US to underpin the UK's nuclear-armed status has severely curtailed the autonomy and independence of British foreign policy for decades. Britain's deep and often self-immolating participation in the US foreign policy misadventures of recent decades cannot be properly understood without the Trident dependency in the frame. Indeed, the argument of anti-nuclear campaigners is that the UK is not constituted to pursue a sane and humane foreign policy whilst touting US-owned nuclear weapons. That is a real national security liability. So join Scottish CND at the Faslane Naval Base on Saturday the 14th of March from 1 PM to send a message to those running for Holyrood office in May that the UK's nuclear weapons system is a liability, a major threat to Scotland, and must be opposed.